Tesla sales fell 8.5% the first quarter of this year. Ford this week is laying off 2/3 of its workforce at the F-150 electric Lightning plant. It's also scaling back a battery production facility because of sagging sales. EV sales are nowhere near what this president wanted or expected, yet the administration continues to shove them down consumers' throats. Why?
Well, let's be clear. Consumers have wanted and purchased more EVs every single year than the year before. And, Tesla is facing more competition as GM and Ford and Stellantis and other competitive players start to make sure they get a piece of the EV market. Let's be clear that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and we can't pretend otherwise. Sometimes when these debates happen, I feel like it's the early 2000s, and I'm talking to some people who think that we can just have landline phones forever. The reality is that the automotive sector is moving toward EVs, and the U.S. can either fall behind China or we can claim the lead. President Biden wants to make sure that those EVs are made in America, especially, again, as more Americans choose EVs every single year than the year before. We've got to make sure that those are made on American soil in places like northern Indiana, where I grew up, places like Michigan, where I live right now. During the Trump administration, China was really able to build an advantage in the EV market, and obviously not because they're big environmentalists over in China, just because that's the economically smart play. We've been working to make sure that that advantage comes back onto American soil.
Once again, we see free market Republicans not understanding the way competition works. But I will say, Pete Buttigieg truly has a talent for going into the lion's den and dissecting Republican talking points right to their face. In this case, the Republican news host cited Tesla numbers dropping during the first quarter of 2024 and tried to say that was indicative of the entire EV market falling. But Pete Buttigieg swiftly debunks that by providing the proper context that more and more companies are actually starting to produce electric vehicles, and as that competition increases, Tesla numbers take a hit. The RNC research team on Twitter, which I sometimes think is controlled opposition because they always find a way to tweet out the dumbest stuff, said Pete Buttigieg disparages Americans who don't want to be forced into electric vehicles. And then they highlight the best line from that segment, which is when he said, "I feel like it's the early 2000s and I'm talking to some people who think that we can have landline phones forever." I mean, it's in the name. Conservatives want to conserve what once was, but we won't let that happen. Technology keeps getting better and better, and they'll have to adapt, just like they've done all these times in the past. Let's debunk this even further by looking at this chart of total EV sales in California and the US from 2011 to 2023. I don't have a chart for 2024 yet, but I think this one proves the point that Pete was making. In 2011, EV manufacturers struggled to sell even 250,000 units in the US, but in Q2 of 2023, they cracked 4.25 million, a massive increase. And this chart is from 2021, but it also illustrates EV sales doubling between the years 2020 and 2021, which I think disproves this idea that people are being forced to buy EVs. People are switching over because they understand the damage that normal vehicles do, and also EVs are getting more and more accessible. They're still very, very expensive. That's probably why the average person hasn't transitioned over, but as more competitors enter the field, the prices will lower because these companies will be competing with each other for the best prices, and Republicans will eventually succumb and start buying EVs as well. I'm surprised they're not already hopping on the Elon bandwagon and starting to buy Teslas.
Look, as you know, the president strongly believes in every worker having the free choice to join a union. We believe in good paying jobs, and we believe that unions built the middle class. We also admire the range of American companies that have innovated, including Tesla, which did so much to make EVs possible in America. Now it's mainstream. Earlier on, at a time, by the way, of course, when U.S. policy with tax credits was supporting companies like Tesla, that wasn't viewed as such a sure bet. Now we see some of the most iconic, some would have said old school names in auto manufacturing out of Detroit, right there alongside companies out of Silicon Valley, all of them in very different ways, helping move America toward this goal. We need to make sure that we have all of the different parts of American industry and of the American workforce attuned to this goal, because this is the future. Again, there's no question whether autos are headed electric. The question is, will we get there in time? Will it be made in America? And will it be done in a way that all Americans can benefit, that Americans can afford these vehicles and capture those savings, those gas and diesel savings that you have when you're filling up with electrons instead of gas and diesel?
Republicans always talk about putting America first, but when we actually have an opportunity to boost the American economy, create new jobs, and most importantly, be on the bleeding edge of electric vehicles, beating out countries like China, Republicans seem to not care about putting America first. They will critique anything that Democrats do. I mean, look at the bridge that collapsed a week or two ago. They immediately started to blame Pete Buttigieg for no reason. He had nothing to do with it, but just because he's a Secretary of Transportation and probably because he's a gay man, they think he is an easy target and can just place the blame on him. But it's not that easy. My name is Adam Mockler. If you enjoyed watching Pete Buttigieg absolutely destroy Republicans in their own arena, make sure to leave a like, comment a blue heart, subscribe, and most importantly, have a great day.